Lesson 1.5 is now going to be about adding integers. And one way to add integers is to use a number line, whether the number line is written or in your mind so you can see which way you're going. Either one works fine. So if we're going to add a positive integer, we'll move to the right. If we're going to add a negative integer, we're going to move to the left. So if we start with our first number, 3, I'm at my 3, and I'm going to combine it or add a negative 9. So I'm adding a negative, so I'm going to go to my left. So I would jump, whoops, 1, up, gotta get back to my tool. Right, we would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 3 plus a negative 9 is negative 6. Now for my next one, I change colors here. Let's do a blue this time. Okay, I'm going to start with my initial number, negative 5, and it says I'm going to add a positive, plus 3. So I'm going to move 3, 1, 2, 3, and it's to the right because it's a positive number, and I land on negative 2. Now this is one way for you to add integers. Now this is just if you really want to check it, but we should move on to learning about the rules. Now I will tell you that this gets a little wordy, but as you keep practicing it will make sense. So the adding integers, we have different rules. If we have the same sign on our integers, we're going to add them and we're going to keep that sign. So in our first example, we have two positive ones, 8 plus 12. You've been doing this since elementary. 8 plus 12 is 20. Now, thinking of the rule and making sure that makes sense, they're both positive and your answer was positive. So now let's just apply that same rule to negative numbers. Negative 6 plus negative 4. They're both negative numbers, so our answer is going to have a negative. We can ignore it. 6 plus 4 is 10, but they were both negative. We need to put the negative sign back there. Negative 10. On a number line, that would look like you were sitting on a negative 6. You're going to add negative 4, so when we add a negative, we move to the left, and that's where we would have landed at the negative 10. Now, if they have different signs, the way I remember this is we're going to find the difference. Finding the difference means we're going to actually subtract. So 5 plus a negative 8. We have two different signs. The 5 is positive. The negative 8 we have is negative. So we look at those numbers, 5 and 8. What's the difference between them? It's 3. And then we give the sign of the larger integer, which is 8. So 5 plus a negative 8 is negative 3. Again, if you want to just be sure, if it's a test or a quiz or you're not sure that that makes sense and you want to keep reviewing it visually, you'd start at 5. You're adding a negative, so you're going to go to the left. You're going to pass 0 because you're going to go to the left more than 5 times. In our next example, again, we have a negative and we have a positive. So the difference between 11 and 13 is 2. The larger integer is 13, and so it's going to say positive because 13 was positive. Now that's basically the rules for adding. The last rule is talking about opposites. So if you ever add the two opposites, so in this case it's 7 plus a negative 7, that's always going to give you 0. If you have the same number in a positive and a negative, combining them will give you 0. Now there's also the additive inverse property. That means the opposite of number is also called the additive inverse. So find the sum of negative 54 plus negative 28. So they are both negative numbers, same sign, so we're going to keep them. Now this is just telling you, forget their signs for a minute. You identified the rule. The rule is they are both negative numbers, so our answer is going to be negative. Now what's 54 plus 28? 54 plus 28 is 82. And then they were both negatives, so it's a negative 82. The next one we have 38 plus negative 17. We have different signs. Okay, this first one was same sign. The next one is different signs. So if it's different signs, we're going to find the difference. Or this is subtract the two. We have 38 plus a negative 17. The difference between 38 and 17 is 21. Notice I forgot all about the negative. I just said they're different signs, so I'm going to find the difference. Now, which one of those numbers, 38 or 17? Again, forgetting the sign. 38 or 17, which one's the larger one? 38 is the larger one, so it would keep that sign. We don't have to write a positive. It's implied, so that would be a positive 21. Now, what if we're adding more than two integers? Same rules apply. We have negative 4 plus a negative 72 plus 61. Remember, these parentheses are just holding that negative sign there. They are not counted in your order of operations. A good plan is to get the same signs together first. So the negative 4 plus the negative 72 would give you same signs. Add those together and give them that sign. So we have a negative 76. And then we didn't do anything yet with the positive or plus 61. Now we have different signs. So the difference, forget their integer signs, the difference between 76 and 61 is 15. And now which one of those numbers, 76 or 61, is larger? 76, and it actually had a negative. So it's going to be a negative 15 is our answer. We get to our very end, we have evaluating, and that means a when. In this case, they wrote it a little bit different. They wrote the semicolon, but they told you x is going to equal a negative 22. So first step is always substituting. So I have negative 22, and that's going to be plus, and putting parentheses just to keep my little negative sign safe there, negative 22 plus negative 9. Same signs. Forget about them a minute. They're negative, so my answer is going to be negative. 22 and 9, if I combine those, that's going to be 31. And they were both negative, so I labeled it with a negative. This time we have x plus 17 plus y. First step, always go ahead and substitute. My x is going to be a negative 22. 17 was provided. Plus y. Y is a negative. I'm putting my parentheses around there. A negative 12. Again, good practice is to combine like terms first. I got a negative 22 and a negative 12. Let's combine those first. They're both the same sign, so we're going to keep the negative. Negative 22 and negative 12 would give me a negative 34. I didn't do anything with the positive 17 yet, so I'm carrying that down to my next step. 34 plus 17, opposite signs, so I'm going to find the difference. The difference between 34 and 17 is 17. And if I look at both those integers, 34 is larger, and 34 happens to have a negative. So that would be the difference between positive 34 and a negative 17. Wait a minute, I copied something wrong there, I think. Let me see. We have nope, we're all right, negative 17. Sorry, I was looking in the book, and what they did was just went left to right. So they did the negative 22 plus 17, that gave them negative 5. Then they had the negative 5 plus a negative 12, and they still ended up then with the negative 17. I prefer to put the like signs together first and do it that way. And that concludes lesson 1.5.